This episode of Places She Shapes is sponsored by JAC Project Management. Cara's career has been shaped by creativity, independence, and saying yes before she had all the answers. From art student to interior designer, she grew with Spacelab before eventually taking ownership of the business she helped build. In this episode, Cara talks creative confidence, leadership, taking opportunities, and why shaping a company starts with knowing what kind of work you truly want to do. Cara, welcome to Places She Shapes at Abbey Road Studios. You're the owner and director of Spacelab. Can you tell me a bit about the company and what you do?
Yep, Spacelab are an architectural and design company. I'm actually an interior designer by trade, but I have been working in predominantly workplace experience for the last 20 years.
Amazing. So we're going to go back to the beginning. So what were you like when you were a little girl?
You know what? I'm not going to lie. I was a pretty good kid. I didn't cause my parents too many problems.
Yeah.
I always had a really good work ethic. I tried really hard at school. I don't think I was pretty average academically, but really excelled in the arts. So from a young age, sort of really got into any form of art, painting, drawing, sculpture. And it was pretty obvious that was always going to be my path.
Really?
Mm.
Where did that artistic flair come from, do you think?
You know what? I really don't know because there's no one in my family who is particularly artistic or has a career in art. Um, I just started very young age. I think I had a teacher at school who really encouraged me to draw. They obviously saw something there. But I just spent a lot of time perfecting it. So I would spend all my free time as a kid drawing, using these craft books. And I think it just became something that over time I just got better and better at. By the time I was sort of studying GCSEs, it was really clear that that was sort of the area of focus for me.
And if I'd asked you when you were 12 or 13 what you were going to do for a living, what do you think you'd have said?
You know what? I don't think I would know. And I still didn't know that, probably when I was 17, 18. I just knew it'd be something. There'd been a creative outlet. But actually how you actually make a career in art was always a bit of a mystery to me. Like, how can you go from, oh, I like drawing, I like expressing myself, I like, thinking about the physical forms and how that impacts us. But how do I make a living out of this? I didn't really know. And it only came much later in life that I realised there was different avenues that you could sort of pursue.
And did you have jobs when you were at school?
Yeah, I did. I used to work the summer with my father, used to come up into London, even at the age of sort of 13, 14, 15. He had a catering business in town. And I used to come up for the summer. I learned how to make coffee. I learned how to work behind the scenes. And then I also had jobs at home. And there was nothing particularly that was going to necessarily be a career. I used to be up for working. So by the age of 15, I had one job. By the age of 16, I was probably working 2 or 3 different jobs. I just had a really good sort of work ethic at a young age. I remember being really driven to work, being really driven to make money, being driven to sort of save that money. And I didn't really know what saving for, but I just had this interest of just sort of getting out there, doing stuff. And I was very active. And I think even through my studies, I was working 2 or 3 jobs. It just became something that I enjoyed doing. I like social side of work. I enjoyed meeting different people. I worked in retail. I worked in restaurants. I worked in a football club for a while. I just enjoyed every aspect of work and committing to something. And I was always quite dedicated to what I was doing at the time.
So you're a saver.
Yeah, I know. How boring. Yeah, I always was. I kind of squirreled stuff away. And you know what? By the age of 24, I think I bought my first house. And it was for me, it was like, I don't know, I just felt like I needed a sense of purpose. What was I working for? What was I doing? And I always like to set myself some goals and some targets. And really the first thing was the big milestone was buying my own house. Yeah. Not that I was unhappy at home. I loved being at home. I loved I had a great family, very happy childhood. But it was actually just really nice thinking, I think the independence, like that's perhaps what I was crying out for.
Yeah. So having your own money, bit in the bank, own house was all independence.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Um, so that where do you think that independence and self-motivation came from?
I I think my father probably, my dad definitely, he worked very hard. I saw he worked very hard. Um, I really respected that. I'd often shadow him, coming up to London with him, and I really got the bug for it. Being in London, I never thought I'd get a local job. I never thought there was anything there that would satisfy sort of my aspirations and the urges that I had. So I always knew eventually I'd probably work in London. Um, I don't know, middle child. I'm not sure where it came from, but I definitely was definitely more independent than my siblings. And I just kind of got on with stuff. I don't really know where that drive came from, but there was definitely a motivation from a young age to stand on my own 2 feet.
Mm.
Mm.
So school, you're creative. How do you end up as an interior designer?
Yeah, yeah, good question. I mean, I think definitely you're so influenced when you're that age, sort of 16, 17. You love something, you're good at something, but how do you channel that into a career path? And it was quite a daunting, I guess, decision on what moves do you make, knowing that could shape the rest of your life. Um, my teacher at the time knew I was kind of toying with this idea, graphic design, I was looking at photography, fashion. There was all sorts of avenues in which I really enjoyed. And she suggested to me that I should do a foundation degree, and which is basically an intense year course which allowed you to explore the avenues in the creative arts.
Yeah.
And so I enrolled in this course after my GCSEs. It's at a university, but it's almost like a year, a intensive year out. It's a diploma, and I learned everything from photography, jewelry making, welding. And I just loved it all. It was such a great experience. And I was like, there was nothing hard work about it. For me, it was just fun. It was really great and really enjoyable, really stimulating. And it was very evident coming out of that experience that 3D form was definitely my bias. And it was the 3D world and the dimensions of that and how people interact with things was the bit that I was most strong at. And 3D design sounds great, but how do I make a career out of this? Where does this
Yeah.
go?
Yeah.
Um, and they said, well, you could do stage set design, you could do theatre design, you could do architecture. And I was like, oh, I like the sound of that. And then realizing architecture was such a long course, I thought, oh God, but I also want to get out there in the real world. Do I want to study for that long?
Yeah.
So I enrolled in interior architecture, which is essentially interior design, but you get all your briefs from university alongside architects. So you're working with architect peers, but you interpret the brief in more of an interior context potentially.
Okay.
So I went down to Canterbury. I studied in Canterbury for 3 years, did my degree. I actually lived at home. I was such a homebody. I lived at home. I commuted to uni. It wasn't probably a typical uni experience.
Yeah.
As in, like, I literally studied really hard. I didn't party too much. I worked at weekends, and it came to my sort of second year, and kind of chaos started at the university when all of the lecturers left the uni and went to a rival campus up the road.
Oh.
And the dean of the school, she was Catherine, her name was, she was left there just one on her own, but with sort of 90 students in their second year of this degree. And she enrolled a lot of her friends and said, from the industry, peers that she used to work with, peers that she, knew through mutual friends, to come and teach us
Okay.
at the university. And that's where I first met Nathan Lonsdale. Nathan is the founder of Spacelab, one of the original founders of Spacelab.
Okay.
And he came to the university and he critiqued my second year. And it was a competition actually for the Dover Priory train station was our anyway, I won that competition, and I think some of the ideas got implemented into the Dover Priory station, and that was fantastic. And Nathan at the end of the second year said, "Oh, I'd love you to come and do a work placement at Spacelab. We can give you 3 months over the summer." Of course, I was like, "Brilliant. That sounds amazing."
Yeah.
So I went to Spacelab, did my summer there, and thought, God, yeah, this is definitely the career path I want. A lot of the work was more commercial work, which was quite unexpected. I didn't even know what commercial work was. But just enjoying sort of the pace of it, the energy, like in the studio and all these other projects going on. And it was just, for me, it was just a real sort of eye opener to what the potential my career could look like.
Mm.
I didn't really think it would go anywhere further than that, to be honest.
How wrong you were.
I know. 20 years later.
So you go back for year 3.
So I go back to my final year. Before I've even graduated, I get a phone call from Nathan. "Can you come and join us? We've won a couple of jobs and I think you'd be great. We really enjoyed having you." So I started working the April 2006, and I hadn't even graduated fully. I hadn't done the whole graduation ceremony and things like that. And I started work then, and to be honest, it was, I wasn't nervous about it. I was eager to get going. I was eager to start applying it. I think I'd had an eye opener about what the industry was about.
Mhm.
I think everything at uni just it felt so insignificant then after that, because I was like, it's so hypothetical. They're expressing sort of creativity and everything, but actually applying that in the real world was much more exciting to me. So I was really keen to get going. Started work at Spacelab, and from then I've never really looked back.
And how old was Spacelab as a company when you joined?
So Spacelab was, they founded in 2002, so they were 4 years old.
Okay, so still a young company.
A very young company. They were in a live-work flat in Dalston.
Mm-hmm.
There was 4 of them and an office manager, all crammed into this flat on this mezzanine level. And we all sat up there together. It was all cozy. And it was, they were very small, but I could see they had big aspirations. There was a lot of pitching involved. There was lots of meetings going to sort of win work. I could see the ambition was there. And I'd go along to everything. I'd go along to all meetings. I had a huge amount of exposure to different sort of environments. And I was just like, wow, I'm just taking it all in. This is brilliant. This is really exciting.
Great learning curve. So how, over the last 20 years, have things developed? So how have we gone from, not even graduating to now owning the business?
Right, yes. I mean, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. So yes, I've been at Spacelab for 21 years now. 21 years. I know, it's such a long time. I guess everything has grown quite quickly, and particularly in the first years. So from joining 4-year-old company, within the first 10 years, I guess, of them starting the business and going, we went from the 4 people when I joined up to 50 people. And I guess I joined at that point where we were starting to win some great work. We were starting to deliver some great designs. And I absolutely had no fear about putting my ideas out there. Like, it was such a safe environment. It was a fun environment. And we were putting out some really ambitious designs. We were winning lots of work. And it was going at such a fast pace. We were moving office. We were employing. And all the time they're growing the business, I was growing with them and with that. So by the time I was 30, I was creative director of 50 people. And I've only been in, I guess, the business for 10 years and even in the industry for 10 years. It was just such a rapid, exciting growth projection that hadn't anticipated would happen. But I think I just joined at the right moment.
Uh,
Um,
what was it, do you think, Nathan saw in you over the other people on your course? Because he must have been, there must have been loads of people that he could have said, come and do a summer or come and join us.
Yeah, I don't, that's a good question that I probably should have asked him that sooner. But there was a funny story. I think he used to get us muddled up, me and another girl at university. And thankfully, he picked the right person. He got it right on the day because I went and did that work experience in the end. But I don't know. I think I was definitely a heads down, get on with it kind of person.
Mm.
And I was very committed. I would work very hard, sometimes probably two long days. And that was on my own doing. It wasn't necessarily asked for. But I was very committed, very driven, wanted to do well. I never said no. Even though sometimes I was panicking inside, I'd always just say, yes, I'm up for it. Give me more. I was definitely open to kind of taking on responsibility.
And do you think that yes mentality, that I probably can't do it, but I'm going to say I can do it?
Figure it out later.
Yeah. Do you think that has been instrumental in how you've grown within the business?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that it would be something where I found in the moment I would be much more positive and optimistic that I know I'll get there. I don't quite know how I'm going to get there, but I'll figure it out, and I know I will figure it out. And I think that's that independent side of where I've always been, is kind of like sometimes not so good at asking for help, but I think I'm going to figure it out anyway.
Mm.
And that self progression and wanting to do more, learn more, has definitely seen me, I guess, grow faster than my years of experience.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, creative director in charge of 50 people, age 30, is super young.
Mm.
How did we go then from that to being in a situation where you're going, actually, I want to buy this business? Or how did that come about?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't so straightforward, and it definitely wasn't that intentional, actually. Of course, I've been at the business for a long time. It, it wasn't as if I was thinking about going anywhere else, right? I knew this is where my foundations were. It very much felt personal to me. I'd helped grow this business. I've helped shape it. Nathan and Andy, who's the other founding partner, they definitely leaned on my opinion. They always asked what I thought about things. They'd always include me in conversations regarding the business. They'd make sure that I helped employ people. And it was fantastic. It was always a really collaborative environment to be in. And I always assumed that it would always be us together. That's seriously what we thought. And we'd often talking about it. It was like, you know, the five amigos, because there was a couple of other directors as well. And it was very much, we were very close. And I just assumed we would always do it together. And at some point, I would have part of the business.
Okay.
That was probably my thought process as I was going through. And yes, I had conversations about it. Yes, there was options presented to me. We went through those sorts of processes. And then I had a baby, I went off on mat leave. And that gives you a lot of time to reflect on your situation. And I remember feeling a bit like, God, like it hasn't happened yet. Like I've been here a long time. I've really helped shape this business. When I go back, I'm going to make sure it happens. And I had that conversation. I came back from mat leave, had that conversation with the two partners, and nothing happened. And 2 years later, I went on mat leave again. I had my second child, and I came back. I thought, God, how have I got here? With another 4 years have passed, and nothing really has changed. But progressively, I was taking on more of the running of the business. All of the project work was being overseen by myself and one other colleague. But even like the business finances, it was all I was becoming much more responsible for everything. And I was thinking.
So you weren't just creative, you were, planning the direction and the finances of the business as well.
Pretty much working quite independently. Obviously, they were there and they were supportive.
Yeah.
And but the day to day, absolutely, we'd report in on our finances and our pitches and projects. So yeah, absolutely, and that kind of crept up on me. Actually, it was just something that just happened quite organically.
Mm.
Um, and then second time round back from my mat leave, I just kind of said, look, this is it. I'm not going off again. This, I'm not going away again. I'm not having any more babies.
Do you think the fact that you were having children was held back that decision?
I don't necessarily think it was held back on the decision. Um, I think in hindsight, I probably didn't push it
Okay.
because I thought, you know what, I'm going to be out of the business for a long period of time. Timings probably aren't ideal at this point. Um, but coming back, I just felt like a different person as well. I had much clearer vision about what I wanted from life. I think the maturity that having children brings and the different perspective as well that you have on life and kind of,
So what changed? What became clearer?
I think you just become, you're responsible, I guess, for other beings, right? You're responsible and you feel that, right, I really want to just take my destiny into my own hands now. And I came back and was much more assertive, I guess, in my approach to that conversation. And I remember saying, this is what I really need to talk about ownership. I really want to have some equity. Like for me, it should have happened earlier.
Mm.
And I'm quite frustrated that it hasn't happened earlier.
Mm.
And it went quiet for a few months. And then I got a phone call. I was actually the day before I was going on holiday. And I got a phone call from Nathan, and he'd said, "Yeah, we've been thinking about what you said, and you can have the business." And I was like, I was what? I have the business? I know, and it really wasn't the response I was expecting. And I was like, I don't even know what that means right now. I'm going to go away. I'm going to have a think about what you just said, and then when I come back, we'll have a proper conversation.
Mm.
And I got back, and yet we sat down, we went through it. I said, well, you're running it anyway. You and Robin, who's the other director, you're
Mm.
rubbing it anyway. Um, we think it's your time. We think it's your time. I was thinking, I've waited 10 years for this.
And then you're just going to give it to me?
And then you're just going to give it to me. Yeah. I just said, yeah, let's do it. What does that look like? And of course, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, God, they're a bit my comfort blanket, right? These guys, they've always been there for me. They've always had my back. Can I do it without them? But in true character, I said, yeah, I'm well up for it. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. No idea how I was going to make it happen, what that actually meant, what was the process.
There's a theme here, isn't there?
There is, isn't there? Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so we started to go through it. I spoke to a lot of people. I got a lot of advice. Some of it good, some of it bad. But you take away every conversation, don't you? And then I started to actually go really into the process of, right, okay, and really driving the process, because realizing you really have to, because it doesn't just happen. People don't really go out their way to sell their business. You have to really drive it. So it actually took about 18 months to go through the process, and it was challenging actually on many levels. The practical side of it was really challenging, because Nathan and Andy, who had started Spacelab, they also owned 4 other businesses, and those businesses had become entwined, shall we say, and unpicking that from the companies was actually a huge exercise, and probably what prolonged the whole process, actually. So unpicking that, following the trail, trying to work out how do we create this independent company that has for so many years been used as the parent company almost through a lot of the contracts and finances and things like that. So severing that and unpicking all of that web.
Yeah.
was part the process that was just a minefield. And doing that, having to have those conversations and the tension that brought with what was right and what was wrong, who knows? But actually,
Mm.
I'm trying to be subjective in that situation and having those difficult conversations. Of course, there does create some tension between people that, they're friends, right? You're all,
Worked
and
together a long time.
that was really emotional and really challenging, actually.
Uh,
But we're all still talking now, so that's the main thing. um, and then also I guess the emotional side of taking the risk and second guessing yourself. And now I know what I know. Do I still want the business? And going through that turmoil as well. But the whole time, just sort of keep moving in the direction and
yeah,
keep it going.
yeah. As the business was being given to you in whatever shape or form that means, did you still feel like it was a risk? For season 3 of Places She Shapes, we're delighted to be supported by Cripps. Cripps is a top 100 UK law firm, working with businesses and individuals across corporate, real estate, litigation, and private client services. Cripps is passionate about solving problems, championing ambitions, making a positive, lasting difference, and is particularly proud to support female leaders, amplifying their stories to help drive meaningful change. As the business was being given to you in whatever shape or form that means, did you still feel like it was a risk?
Definitely. Yeah. And it wasn't the risk of running the business. That didn't scare me because I felt like I had been doing that already. And I wasn't scared of that. And I was really excited about that part. The risk was for me was taking on the business in the condition it was
Yeah.
and not having full control and transparency of that for the last 5 years. And then knowing, okay, what have I got to build upon to then make sure that we go forward? I mean, at that point, we were 15, about 15 people. And the first thing you're thinking about is them, right? So
Mm.
if I'm starting at this point in the business, how do I make sure that I protect the team? How do I make sure I protect our clients? And at some point we were, you know, we were thinking, God, is it easier just to start fresh? Because this feels so complicated.
Yeah.
Should we just start afresh? And that did cross our minds. But yeah, we eventually made it work.
Why didn't you do that?
The main reason was because we loved the brand that we had helped build,
Mhm.
and we felt a sense of ownership of that anyway. Um, that was probably the main reason. I think because we were worried also, as you would, that a new business, you then have to reestablish those relationships with your clients.
Mm.
I think most people thought we already had ownership and probably already had equity
Mm.
way before we actually did. So I think we always felt that it would be confusing for our clients to explain the situation. It just felt, and also then there would be the financial side of it. How do you set up a business? Where do you start with your cash flow?
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it was interesting, but the main thing that drove it was we had a great team, we had a great brand, we'd had success in the past. We knew we could continue.
Yeah.
Um, so we didn't want to walk away.
How did you feel about letting go of that, what you perceived, I think, as the safety net of Nathan?
Um, yeah, it was more of a, the companionship in business and, having someone you can call and someone you can have as a sounding board. Um, I think it was definitely easier than I had anticipated because perhaps they had more faith in me than I probably ever had really in myself. But I think the relationships that I had outside of Nathan and Andy within the business, they just really solidified actually. and we were all very close. We've we've kind of pivoted slightly in the dynamics of our relationships and sort of made that work. But there's definitely moments where I guess I would say that I would want to get some sort of ideas from, or they've got a different perspective on things than I have.
Mhm.
And where do you get that inspiration and that motivation
Yeah.
when you're the person that people are looking at? So just thinking about ways in which you can get that
Yeah.
from the other people around you. Yeah.
Do you do you wish in hindsight you'd push the ownership equity thing harder earlier?
You know what? I think we would have eventually got to this place anyway.
Okay.
And actually, if it happened sooner, maybe I wouldn't have been ready for it. I do believe that it does happen when it's right to happen. What surprises me is I guess the loyalty. I look back and I think, gosh, I was there for 10, 15 years before it even became a topic. I don't know. It's quite surprising because I think now in a business of that size, anyone who's in my team that have been we have got people in the team that have been with us for 10 years, and that is a huge sort of commitment and loyalty that shouldn't go unrecognized.
Mm.
And that's definitely a learning for me now as a business owner, is to really acknowledge that, really value that, and provide recognition where we can. Um, we're all sort of 2 years into our management buyout, so we've
Mm.
got sort of 1 year to go.
Yeah.
The moment that's done is the first thing I'll be thinking about is succession.
And how are you gonna go about that?
I think the mechanism has yet to be fully worked out, but for me, it's important that Spacelab will continue beyond me,
Mm.
beyond Robin. And actually thinking about the longevity of that brand is really important. And I think bringing people on the journey with you, the ones that you can trust, the ones that kind of are really committed to the cause, um, we would definitely be opening up that conversation with people internally. Yeah.
You were there a long time before. You must have had other job offers.
You know what? It was full on blinkers. I mean, I literally really was never tempted to go anywhere else.
But you must have had recruiters calling you.
Of course, of course. There was a few people I would go to a meeting thinking it was a business development meeting, and they'd offered me a job. Like seriously, it was. But I never took any of it seriously. Never once did I think about moving anywhere else. I was just enjoying.
Do you think that's you, or that's the people that you were working with, or was it the brand and what was it that kept you in one company for so long?
I think it was a combination. Definitely my personality is I'm pretty committed and consistent, I would say. For me, it's about that. Um, I'm not reactive at all, never have been. I've always had a bit of a plan.
Mhm.
That plan does change, but it does there's always a I think there's always in my mind there's always something I'm working towards. And at SpaceLab, because the growth was so rapid and always evolving, I was always stimulated. I was always sort of really engaged in the whole process. There was no real reason to look elsewhere. I was really confident that I could build what I wanted where I was and make the success. And as long as I was enjoying it and having fun,
Mm.
like I didn't know where I would go elsewhere. I couldn't work out what the appeal would be to go to a big corporate company.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'll have less freedom and autonomy than I've got here. So for me, it was never really a consideration, not a serious one anyway.
Are you a goal setter?
I am. Yes, I am a goal setter. And I have always been a goal setter. Like the buying of my house. There was things like that I would set myself. And I do use sort of visualization to think about where my life might be in 5 years, where it might be in 10 years. And there's a picture in my head of what I think success would be, what happiness would be. And I use it really as a guide to help me stay focused, I guess, on what's important in life
Mm.
and what's important to me. And it's a bit like a daydream. It's a bit like okay, where do I want to be in 5 years? What do I want to be doing? How do I want to be spending my days? You know, and I check in with that quite periodically, and it does change, it does evolve, but I use it as a bit of a guide. It keeps me very grounded about what's important. And you realize at some point that, oh, actually, I'm kind of doing the things that I once was dreaming about. That's brilliant.
Mm.
And then you kind of cast the net a bit further. What's the next 5 years? And I think that forward motion and keeping you moving in that direction is something that's always been really useful to me.
Who taught you that, or is that just something you've done naturally?
Um, I f- I feel like as long as I can remember, I've always been quite goal driven. Um, but we did a course um, when I was in Spacelab, and I was early 20s, and it has really stuck with me. And it was an away day in Brighton that we'd spent, I think, a couple of days out of the office, stayed down in Brighton, and we went on this exploratory experience, I think is what they called it.
Okay.
And it was a workshop. And the workshop took it to one extra level. It was it was true visualization. So it was being in that moment that you are aspiring to be in. You can smell it, you can hear it. All your senses are triggered by familiarity. And it was a technique that they did, and I really enjoyed that process. And I since then I've definitely kind of extended upon what I used to do, and I really do try to experience it. And I do think if you don't have a goal and a path and an idea of where you need to go, how do you know you're on the right path at all? So for me, it's always been quite a useful tool.
So back in your 20s when you did that course in Brighton,
Yeah.
what were you visualizing then, and have you achieved all those things?
So it sounds really simple, but the scene that I had a few visualizations, but the key one I had was I was I was at home. It wasn't my home. It was a home. It was a beautiful home.
Mm.
And I had two children, actually, a husband. I had a big solid dining table laid out in the front room, and my drawings were out, my laptop was out. I was enjoying sketching, I was drawing, I was creating.
Mhm.
And there was children in the room. There was a lovely relaxed feel of it. And it was enjoying work and having a family life and bringing those two together. And as sort of a 20-year-old who, you know, it was probably a real sort of abstract
Mm.
sort of dream. And then you realize, oh gosh, I'm now there 20 years later, um, doing those things. I mean, it looks different to how I imagined,
Yeah.
but it's understanding and really celebrating when
Yeah.
you've reached those goals.
Do you think if you hadn't gone down interior design, you'd done something creative, obviously, but do you think you'd still now be a business owner? Is owning a business important to you, or was it Spacelab that you wanted to own specifically?
I I don't think I ever set out to become a business owner. No. I don't even, and I'm not even saying, I mean, not even saying I wouldn't want to be, but I don't think it really was one of my goals in life to
Mm.
become a business owner. Um, my goals in life was more to do great work.
Yeah.
And I realized, I guess, by creating a brand that I loved and actually never wanting to let go of that and making it feeling like that was your baby almost. Um, that's the only reason that I went in to become a business owner, really.
Mm.
I don't think if I didn't, I don't think Spacelab might even exist right now. Because if I wasn't there to take it forward, I don't think there was the aspiration to continue either. So I couldn't let that happen.
Do you see yourself as a leader?
I'm very aware that as a business owner, as the director of a business, I am influencing and can influence others within the team. Um, I guess I hope that I inspire and motivate them. So yes, in the very sense that I guess I am a leader in that sense. Um, I wouldn't say I'm a natural leader. I am very independent, and sometimes that means you forget to share stuff and communicate. So that's definitely something that's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Um, and also the culture that we've built at Spacelab is very relaxed and very flat, as in hierarchy. So, and been very intentional. Not that I'm shying away from being a leader, but that's just the leader I choose to be. So,
So what does that look like in practice?
so that looks like, so all decision making, is, of course, there is an element of control, particularly financials, but generally within the practice, we have focus groups, we have delegates, and there's a lot of autonomy day to day
Mm.
in not only project work, but how we run the business, how the people are treated and reviewed and appraised, how the brand and marketing is put out there, how the operations of the business and the contract renewals. So we've got focus groups for each of these areas of the business. Each is headed up by an associate level or director.
Mm.
But everybody gets a say in how things are run, and they come up with some fantastic ideas. I mean, if that was left to one person, you wouldn't get so much creativity, you wouldn't get so many ideas and thoughts. And we rotate these focus groups twice a year. They all have to report on what they've set their goals, what they've achieved. Have they hit their budgets? And it gives them a real good insight into the behind the scenes bits of running a business, but also it allows them to feel part of it, very much part of the running of a business.
Mm.
And it's just worked really well for us. That's probably the first thing that we did when we took on. I am in design because I want to design.
Yeah.
I don't just want to manage business. So just getting that balance right was really important for me.
Yeah. What would you say to anybody that wants to be a business owner? What would your advice be?
I would say have the right people around you. I would say that don't obsess and try not to be too controlling. I think sometimes things happen organically, and that's okay as well.
Yeah.
And just try and enjoy it and have fun. I think because if you're not happy in what you're doing, and if you're not enjoying it, then how can you expect others to? So, yeah, I think that's what I'd say.
It sounds to me like Nathan and Andy had sometimes more faith in your abilities than you had in yourself. Would you say that's true?
Yes, most definitely. I think they'd put me in situations where I'd be like, I have no idea how to navigate this,
Mm.
how to do this. And it'd be meetings, it would be presentations, it would, it could be all sorts of different things that I would have a go. And they'd be like, well, uh, we know that you can do it, you know. And then often I remember once saying to Nathan, God, but I don't know how I'd ever be able to stand up and present like you do. Like, complete in awe of the way that he carried the room, the way that he, shot from the hip, answered questions. And it was all, and he was very charismatic. And him saying to me, well, you won't ever present like me. No, you'll present like you, and you'll find your own way, and you'll find your own, the way that you feel comfortable with. And I remember thinking, God, yeah, okay. So I need to just start being myself, be yourself, be authentic, and actually just not being afraid. They definitely fostered a culture, which is still true of today, that felt that you could say anything. There's no sort of silly answer to anything.
Hmm.
Put your ideas out there. It might lead to something else. And it was that sort of environment that, I guess, allowed me to grow so quickly. But they would definitely push me, and they would promote me, and I'd be like, "Are you sure? Oh yeah, literally, like, are you sure? Like, you've literally just promoted me." So, and they'd say like, "Yeah, we want you to do this role. I know you're not quite ready yet, but you'll get there. We know you. We've got complete faith in you."
Yeah.
And I don't think, it wasn't necessarily they would do that to a lot of people. Like, it wasn't necessarily just me, but I think I grabbed hold of it.
Yeah.
And I really, truly embraced it.
I think that's really powerful, isn't it? When somebody sees in you something that you perhaps don't see in yourself, and kind of pushes you
Mm.
perhaps before you feel like you're quite ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely a lesson that I've learned. And, when we talk in the office about the team, and we talk about sort of promotion, and we talk about, and you can sort of overthink and think, okay, well, this is what the expectations are of the job description, and this is the checklist. But I think sometimes you have to put people in that position
Mm.
and stretch them to allow them to move into that role. And I think knowing more about sort of the personalities of people, and understanding, if they've got the motivation to do that, then they'll grow into that role, and
Mm.
they'll develop much quicker than what you had if you just sort of said, well, you haven't yet done this and you haven't
Yeah,
yet done that.
absolutely. It's got to be more of a feeling, perhaps.
It's
than-
more of a feeling, definitely. So there's so much that I've learned from them, definitely. And
Yeah, it's great. Um, you've said to me about a piece of advice you return to is remembering that you're likely to be the most knowledgeable person in the room on your subject, and that's really helped you, hasn't it?
yes, it has. I think the it goes back to the presenting, right? It was never something that I felt particularly comfortable with, and obviously talking about the projects that you're working on, or talking about a particular idea, and there was always a sort of, nervousness. Is the client going to like it? Are they going to buy into it? Can I sell this to them almost? But and then what was a great reminder, as where Nathan and Andy would say, would be like, you know this better than anybody else. For them, you're the expert in the room.
Mhm.
And yes, you do need to earn that trust. But once you have that trust, then you'll be able to lead them through the process.
Yeah.
And I think once you break down that and you think, well, yes, you know what, I am pitching to somebody, I am presenting, but actually, I know how to do this. I've done this before. I know I'll get great results by doing it in this way. And just having that confidence, I think then you forget all the fears of, will they like it? Will they won't? Because actually, there's a system, there's a process, there's thought that goes behind it. There's science that we use in some of the techniques and tools that we use that actually help dictate and shape a project outcome. And it takes the subjectiveness away from, I guess, a particular sort of idea or a design,
Mm.
and you can start putting evidence in place. And I think having the confidence in that, having the trust in that process, has always served me very well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. what are the aspirations now for you and the business?
We definitely, at this point, are understanding who we are. And as now business owners, I wouldn't class it as a relaunch, so to speak. It's not a revolution,
No.
but there's an evolution. There is an evolution. I think we are redefining who we are. We are redefining our values. What was beautiful about Nathan and Andy's relationship is they were very entrepreneurial. What I struggled with was there was so many ideas. We could do the business this, we could take the business that way. We could explore all these other ideas. And the energy that took and the distraction
Yes.
that brought
Okay.
was quite a lot. And what we've done since taking on the business is really sort of really focus the business, understand our skills, our marketplace, understand what we can bring, and we're being much more strategic. And there's definitely opportunities for a bit of growth and a little bit of variation, but actually understanding your core business and then perfecting that is definitely the difference in the businesses from where it was 10 years ago. It was much more risk-taking. It was much more, I guess, exploratory in the sense of kind of reviewing other options, spending money on R&D and things like that. And now we are much more clear on who we want to be and who we are. And driving that forward is something that we're really, really sort of working on.
And you personally?
Me personally, I think I think I said to Robin when we first took the business on, I think it was in our first 3 months, and definitely when we took on the business, and it was not in a great shape, to be completely honest. I said, well, first of all, we cannot mess this up in the first 3 months. This has to go well.
Yeah.
And we got through that, and that was a particularly painful period. And we set ourselves goals and said, we need to financial goals as goals. We need to recast our own roles in the business. Where do we want to be doing? What do we want to be overseeing?
Yeah.
How are we going to make this work? And my personal thing was I want to make sure that I'm involved. I'm involved in the design. I'm involved in the creative output. I want to be overseeing that side of things. How do we make that work? How do I make that? I want to make sure I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and you need to
absolutely.
be enjoying what you're doing on a day-to-day. If that works, and that's important to the business, it's important to us personally, then everything else will fall into place if we know what we want to be doing.
What do you think the key thing is that's got you to where you are now?
I think being open-minded. I think for me, it's always been about understanding my options that are available and then honing in, making a decision and honing in on what is, and being intentional and being committed to a certain direction. I think that's probably been the sort of my guiding tool through life, and not wavering and not sort of second guessing and doubting or trying to explore too much. I think we've only got a certain bandwidth, right? So being focused and going down a certain route, being committed to that route, and just having the faith that, take that step forward and know that you're going in the right direction because it's intentional.
Keep moving.
Keep moving.
So the podcast is called Places She Shapes. So I've got 3 questions regarding places and she and shapes. Radical, I know. You're in a room with everyone you've ever met, dead or alive, excluding your immediate family. Who would you look for first?
Good question. Repeat the question. Sorry, Chloe.
So visualize for me. You've walked into a massive room. It's a party.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone you've ever met is in there, all with a glass of champagne in their hand. Who would you look for?
Excluding my immediate family.
Excluding your husband and your children.
So, someone I'd want to hang out with.
So someone fun.
Someone fun.
Who is that person?
Who's fun? I would say there is lots of fun people in my business, but I would say it has to be my partner in crime. Has to be Robin. We go back 20 years. We always have fun.
That's nice. And the she question, who's the woman you turn to for advice and why?
It would probably be my sister. There's not so much advice, but she's definitely there to listen.
Okay. She's a sounding board.
She is.
And the shapes question, how do you shape your ideal day?
How do I shape my ideal day? Discipline and consistency is how I make my day work.
Okay.
Um,
But what if you had, I said tomorrow, taken everything out of your diary, Cara, what would you do? Would you have late breakfast? Would you go for a run? Would you go to work? Would you hang out with your kids? What would you do?
I would definitely start the day by not getting up at 6:30.
No alarm.
No alarm set. Wake up with the sun. I would go for a run, which I do try and do occasionally. I would go for coffee. I would watch a movie with my kids. And then I would probably sit in the evenings and sketch and draw, and listen to a podcast.
Be creative.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Amazing. Cara, thank you so much. You've been amazing. If you've enjoyed this conversation, follow Places She Shapes wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss the rest of season 3.